Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another session of the first International Symposium on Applied Linguistics by the Applied Linguistics Research Lab at Prince Sultan University. We'll just start after a few reminders. So I would like all of you to please keep your mic mute throughout the session. And if you have any questions, please write them on Q&A section of the Zoom. Please do not post your questions on the chat box. They may not be addressed. You will receive your certificate after the symposium. And please follow us on Twitter, and you will be shared with hashtag for today. Please leave your comments and feedback with that hashtag. So let's get started with our presentation. I would like to welcome Ms. Dr. Zainab Ghaffas from Al Qura University, Saudi Arabia. And she is going to present students' perceptions about blended learning versus virtual ESP classrooms. Very hearty welcome to you, Dr. Zainab. You can start. Floor is yours now.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you, and I'm so happy that you have booked into room 3. Let me introduce myself, if you don't mind. My name is Zainab Ghaffas, and I completed my MA in Applied Linguistics in English for specific purposes from University of Essex, and obtained my PhD in Applied Linguistics and in English language teaching from University of Sheffield. I work now as an assistant professor of Applied Linguistics and ELT in the English Language Center at Al Qura University. My research interests include ESP, EAP, call, and genre analysis. I'm here to tell you about one of my interesting projects. It's a very small scale study, and it's conducted to compare between students' views of their learning experiences in virtual and in blended ESP course. Before I start, let me introduce you to the outline of the presentation. Let me see what's happening. It's not moving. Right. We will go to understand and have some background about what are the virtual and blended classes, and then I'll introduce you to the study, and then the ESP course, the methods and the results, and the end I'll give some general implications based on the results obtained from the studies. Here in this slide, I'd like to give you some general background about the meaning of online teaching. I'm sure that even though the use of online teaching and learning at university has increased rapidly, the rise of online teaching during the COVID-19 pandemic has made the online education an important component of both university and school education. As you know, that Saudi universities have taken great steps to enhance the learning process of their students by switching to purely online teaching to make for the closure of the universities. Also, students in public and private schools have been receiving their education through online learning platforms made available by the Ministry of Education. We all now understand the application of online teaching and learning. And I believe now we live in the era of online education. And because we are under one pressure, which is COVID-19 pandemic, we have unified our aim and worked hand by hand to move fast to ensure an interactive learning and to work hard to replicate existing classrooms, situations online, and trying hard to incorporate new pedagogical teaching practices. But I think there is no harm for you to read literature and see what online teaching and learning mean. As you can see in the slide, that online teaching and learning is defined as any form of learning and or teaching that take place by computer network. Usually, online courses are built using learning management systems such as Blackboard, Adobe Connect, Desire to Learn. We also have another platforms like Zoom, Teams, and many other platforms. Usually online courses are two types. The first type is synchronous online courses, which means virtual classes, and asynchronous classes. Both of them are online, but there is a difference between these two uh, items or names or types. The synchronous online classes occur in a set schedule and time frame. Students and teachers are online at the same time in synchronous classes, since lectures, presentations, and discussions take place at specific hours. While asynchronous classes are different. They let students complete their work on their time. The teachers can give the students materials, lectures, assignments that can be accessed at any time. So students are free to contribute where and when they choose to choose to complete the assignments. But usually they are given a time frame. If we move to that, so our context here is about synchronous online classes, the virtual one, that the students have time frame. Both teachers and students have limited time. They sit in the class in time frame. If we look at the opposite of virtual class is the blended classes. Here, the blended learning and teaching defined as a mix of teaching methods and material that can be placed somewhere on a continuum between fully online and fully face-to-face courses. So the blended courses are not fully online courses and not fully face-to-face courses. They are in between those types. So blended classes are built on the use of two instruction modes, face-to-face classes and online classes, which is the virtual classes that follow time frame. If we move to the next class, let me introduce you to my study. As you know that the aim of this study is to compare students' views of their learning experience while they are in their virtual classes and in the blended classes. And that course is called ESP, English for Specific course. The main research question of this study is how do students' learning experience in virtual and blended ESP classes differ from each other? And this study was conducted before the COVID-19 pandemic, before this period, and it was carried out in the ELC English Language Center at Al University. Well, this leads me to the next class slide, which is about the ESP course, the teaching course. The text that have been used for this course is called Career Path Finance. It's a professional career curriculum provided by Express Publishing, and it includes 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. Each level of them includes 15 units. The course is directed to students who are going to complete their bachelor degree in College of Islamic Economic and Finance. The same course is given to students in the blended class. So they having both groups having the same course, right? Let's move to the course duration. There is a difference here. So if you look at the virtual classes, they have 10 hours a week for 16 weeks. But the duration of the course that presented in blended classes uh, is very limited and very short because it's offered to the students who registered in the summer term. And usually summer term is 5 weeks. So it's 20 hours a week. And that's divided into 4 hours face-to-face classes and 16 hours virtual classes. Another difference between the two classes that teachers are different. The teacher who taught virtual classes is not the same teacher who taught blended classes. They are different teachers. They were different teachers. The scope and the objective of the course is same since the course is the same course. So it's to prepare students for their core courses, some of which are taught in English medium, and to provide students with the necessary jargon and with opportunity to practice all the 4 language skills in meaningful, specific, subject-specific context. Well, let's move to the next slide, which is about the method. We'll talk about the participant in details. There are 2 groups, as I told you. The groups, 2 groups of students came from one department. All of the students from both learning environment are coming from one department, College of Islamic Economics and Finance, at studying at Qura University. And first group are 14 students registered to study ESB course in the summer term. Their ESB course was run in a blended delivery format, and those are the blended class. Second group, 42 students registered to study ESB course in the second term of the academic year. Their ESB course was run in virtual delivery format, and they are the virtual class. Most of the students in the blended class were in their 4th year. 10 of them, 10% were in their 2nd year, and 3% of them were in their 3rd year. So they are different in the level of their study. However, students in the virtual class were all of them in their 1st year. All the participants are female students, okay? Now, this study was based on a mixed method design. Therefore, both quantitative and qualitative methods were used to collect data. The students' perceptions were examined by using a survey, which was conducted at the end of the semester. The questionnaire was adapted from Bercha Elta 2010. The questionnaire, as you can see in this figure, included 5 sections. In each section, if you see, the first section is about course design, included several items. Then we have second section include items asking about interaction with instructors, and is assessing students' views of whether the interaction with the instructors have been done successfully. Okay, and let's move to the next slide. This is the result. They're so nice posts. I've seen that. The result, if you can say, there is no difference between the students' evaluation of the course design. Students from both groups agreed that the electronic learning environment they were attending offered communication, has facilitated introduction, and was well structured and was easy to handle. And both of the students agreed that they had deal with some technical problems, and they had the course was demanding with their regard to learning efforts. Result 2, the interaction with tutors. Both students in both groups agreed that it was easy to interact with the tutors by using chat rooms and emails. And they, however, students in both groups agreed that they missed the personal contact with their course instructors, and the personal relation were neglected. Well, interaction with peers, most of the students in both groups positively evaluated that. However, students in the virtual class found that learning in groups and cooperation was more supported, while students in the blended class found that was less supported. Also, virtual classes agreed that students that communication media did not complicated work, while students in the blended agreed that communication media complicated group work. Most of the students positively evaluated a visual learning process. Both groups agreed that that was flexible in learning with regard to time and place. They agreed that the opportunities for monitoring the learning outcome was supported. And what about learning outcomes? Students in the virtual, there is a difference and a big difference. There is students in the virtual class reported better knowledge acquisition in subject matter. However, students in blended classes reported that they found it hard to acquire knowledge in subject matter. All right, that's make us to move to the qualitative results. 5 themes are there: flexibility as to time and place, technical problems, self-independent learning, lack of physical contact, and interaction with peer students. As you can see here, there are some quotations from the virtual and blended students. The first most important and frequent theme was defined as the flexibility as to time and place. Students in blended classes stated that they become disappointed, and because they were not familiar with how to fix technical problems, the taking online classes become less interesting and boring. While students in the virtual classes were more tolerant of technical problems. They become more familiar to deal with these problems, and they were more supportive and more willing to help each other. If you can see, those are the quotations from them. It saved my time, and it was, it was convenient. Right. Now, this is about the flexibility. Both of them indicate that it was flexible and easy to handle. These are the technical problems. So students in the virtual class indicated more willing to help each other and more tolerant for doing that. If you can see here, in every class, we had a technical problem, one problem that I got kicked off several times, but that was not an excuse not to trying to sign up again. While the students in the blended class, why not just take lectures in class? Technical problems were boring and I got disappointed easily. Let's move to the third theme, self-directed learning. Students from both learning environments explained in several cases their learning environment encouraged them to learn English and appreciated the fact that they could manifest their autonomy, manage their time in a more effective way, and they were able to do a number of things stimulously and could walk on their own pace. As you can see the quotation, it developed our autonomy, blended. Well, while I was working online, I felt that I am more independent. I could use online dictionaries. The third theme, it's lack of physical contact. Most of the students in the virtual classes show greater interest to have physical contact with their course teacher. Unlike the students in the blended classes who were, some of them, not satisfied with having 4 only hours face-to-face classes, and they asked for more. As you can see, it would be more beneficial if we had face-to-face, those are the virtual, but the blended students said, I felt that it was not enough to meet the teacher for only 4 hours was not enough for me. The last theme, it's about interaction with peer students. As you can see, students in the virtual classes, they have more opportunity to interact with each other because it's not limited time. They are willing to help each other. While blended students, I do not like to interact with other students in online. And, well, I think it was good to work in small groups in face-to-face instead in online classes. That's drive me quickly to the implications. Overall, it's interesting to note that in this study, most students in both learning environments, whether virtual or blended, perceived online courses to be convenient, and face-to-face classes conducive to their learning situations. Here are some implications based on the result of the study. The blended learners experience more technical and more challenges with technical problems. So offer students an introduction to online learning and to help them how to deal with technical problems. Second implication, certain activities should not be ignored. For example, like working group in small groups. Teachers should not ignore it even if there wasn't enough time. So teachers should promote the application of working in small groups anytime she could do that and consider not to ignore it. The last implication, we have to offer students the courses in both formats to provide a choice for the students. There are some students who have distinct preference for learning English, and not having a choice of a format of learning may lead them not to take the course, or may lead them to be less motivated to take the course, which in turn may influence the learning education, the learning language. Thank you so much, and this is the end of my presentation. I can receive any question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. I'm just looking for some questions. There are no questions so far. It was really, I was amazed by the results, basically, although some students may say otherwise, but they were really nice results. Like some students may feel like going back to college is like fun, but I could see it can say otherwise as well.
Yeah.
There
are
no
many
questions
results that I wish to include in this study, but because the time is limited, so I just
can understand. I can understand. I think it was quite clear and everybody has enjoyed the presentation, but there are no questions. As of now, we can give them a few more minutes.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can direct your questions to Q&A section of the Zoom if you have any. Thanks. Okay, we have just thanks.
Thank you, by the way, yeah.
Okay. All right, then, Doctor, would you like to share your...
Oh, there are some.
Okay, we have something here now.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think teaching virtually is more effective in teaching a specific skill?
This is a very interesting question, Samar. For me, no, I don't think so. Based on my own experience, I'm teaching an ESB course, and I am one of the one who taught students in blended. There are two things in ESB course that we have to take care of it. It's the subject knowledge, student subject knowledge. Those students have no idea about the finance. They had no idea or background about some vocab that been used, professional vocab or context that been used in their subject matter. Which I prefer is the blended one. While I was teaching the blended group, I usually try to use the virtual classes for repeating the main ideas, the things that I have been introduced them to in the face-to-face classes. So I use the face-to-face classes for introducing new information, important information, new vocabulary, new terms. While in the virtual classes, I try to use those information in practice, apply some activities, breakout rooms, so they can practice that new information. Okay, I hope that helps, Samar.
Inshallah. We have one more question, Doctor. Yeah. Both virtual and blended include online teaching. How do these impact on student participation?
It depends on the students themselves. So based on the results that I've gained from this study and my experience of teaching ESP in blended and in virtual, those students who were in have no background about the material that it's included in their course content, content, they don't want to participate. So the teacher has a very significant role to push the students participate virtually. While some of the students are more interested to participate in virtual rather than in face-to-face. So teachers can figure out what type of a student she has. If the students are more willing to participate face-to-face, so let's go with that. If the students would like to participate virtual, so no one can recognize her, or she can save her water. I mean, if she makes any mistakes, no one can notice that. So she can go with that. So it depends on the teacher and the student's learning preference. So one of my implication of this study is to give the students the choice, whether would you like to have it blended or purely online classes. It depends on the students, and they don't maybe they cannot choose whether format is beneficial for them. They have to have like an introduction about what blended is and what purely online classes is. But according to what we are now living, as I told you, in the era of online education, I think the result will be changed. Most of the students now are taking purely online classes, and it's interesting to know what their views after having such a situation.
Okay, there's
Thank
a
you.
follow-up question for this. It is, what if you have mixed ability and learning preferences students?
Sorry?
What if you have mixed ability and learning preferences students?
It's difficult. If you have mixed abilities and mixed learning preference, it's a very challenging context. But an excellent teacher and a very qualified teacher would deal with that, with this. I can say that.
Okay, there is one more question. Don't you think that the imbalance between time dedicated to each mode is a factor in having difference in student perceptions?
Yes, yes, yes. And this is one of the main findings that I've wished to include it, that most of the students say that the time is limited, the time is limited. And even the teachers, I have some interviews with the teachers, they said that we couldn't make students have, we couldn't incorporate some activities and practices because we don't have time to do that. So that would be a very clear factor in having differences in the students' perceptions. I agree with you, Ala. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It was really enlightening presentation, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you once again. We'll be joined just shortly after a minute or so by our next presenter. So just stay with us. Okay, so we'll start our next presentation, and we're honored to have Dr. Yasmin Alalevi here from Qasim University, Saudi Arabia. And we'll have the topic Translating Poetic Wisdom from Arabic into English, a stylistic linguistical analysis. Dr. Yasmin, you can start. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fatma. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'd like to welcome you to this session. I hope that you find what I'm going to present to you useful and enjoyable. But first, I'd like to check whether can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
And can you see the presentation?
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Okay, so I'll be talking about translating poetic wisdom from Arabic into English as stylistic linguistic analysis. Let me briefly introduce myself to you. My name is Dr. Yasmin Saleh Al-Alawi. I am an assistant professor at the Department of English Language and Translation in Qasim University. I have PhD in Applied Linguistics from Imam University in Riyadh. I have MA in Linguistics from Imam University in Riyadh. I have extensive training in translation techniques. I am a certified trainer by the Technical and Vocational Training Corporation. I am also a licensed trainer by the Technical and Vocational Training Corporation. I am a certified practitioner in coaching by the EDU education in Egypt. I am a certified trainer also by the Newcastle University in the UK. I am a certified professional trainer by MEDEX International, USA. Here we have the presentation outline. I'll try to cover these topics. First, a short introduction, aim and research gap, wisdom in Arabic poetry, research methodology and framework, the issue of equivalence, translation and gender, rhyme, translating metaphor, and finally, a short conclusion. Actually, societies are in constant need of wisdom across all ages and time. The insights of life experiences from such wisdom are compiled into brief and concise slides. So we often see that the phrases of wisdom are manifested in short, condensed phrases to ease their transmission from one generation to another. Throughout ages, people still transmit the sayings of which from one generation to another. That's because these phrases succinctly outline the experiences of predecessors and bridge the gaps of age and time. This form of art is roughly found in Old World languages, yet in Arabic and English languages, it is commonly represented in proverbs and verses of poetry. In Arabic, it is deemed as an integral part of the Arab literary heritage. Why to talk about wisdom? Actually, in the Islamic tradition, there are prophetic sayings and cultural slogans that urge for wisdom, including in poetry, there is wisdom. Actually, this is a an excerpt from a prophetic hadith, meaning in Arabic, إن من الشعر لحكمة وإن من البيان لسحرة. And it was said wisdom is the pursuit of the believer, also meaning الحكمة ضالة المؤمن. And the Almighty says He gives wisdom to whom He wills, and whoever has been given wisdom has certainly been given much good. يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤتى الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا. And called Luqman wise because he speaks wisdom and works with it. Research aim. In the literature, there is little research that addresses specific poetic genres. Therefore, this study aims to analyze a collection of the researchers' translated works on wisdom as a genre of Arabic poetry. The analysis is mainly confined to two linguistics aspects, lexicon and phonology. A research gap, there is a paucity of research that focuses on analyzing a particular type of poetry. However, studies dealing with wisdom as a genre of verse are virtually non-existent. I could not find a single study that deals with wisdom in poetry. Hence, this study is needed to fill this research gap. Wisdom in Arabic poetry. Actually, as we know, the literature of Arabic addresses a variety of topics, including love, satire, wisdom, praise, mourning. So there are many names actually. As for wisdom, there are many names that are associated with this type of verse. They were writers known by their insight, thoughtfulness, and rightful understanding of life who altered life experiences into pieces of prose or lines of poetry. Such names include Aktham bin Saifi, Ali bin Abi Talib, Qais bin Sa'ida, Abu al-Fath al-Busti, and Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, and many more. Themes, by reviewing the Arabic poetic heritage, it is also noticeable that the themes contained in the Arabic verse of wisdom involve the urge for honorable values such as solidarity, morality, magnanimity, generosity, trust, faithfulness, patience, virtues, honesty, good manner, and other noble attributes. Now, coming to the research methodology, this study employs an analytical research design. In analytical research, the researcher uses facts or information already available and analyzes them to make a critical evaluation of the material. In the current work, a random set of verses of wisdom were selected, translated into English, and then submitted to scrutiny and evaluation. As a general framework for translating the lines, the researcher adopted Hervey and Huygens model. As you know, there are different models for translation strategies, including Newmark, Holmes, Binet and Darbonnet, Lefevre. Actually, I have selected this model as a framework for translating the lines. This model proposes some strategies which are typically used in translating cultural texts. It consists of 5 categories representing the various degrees of translation, ranging from extremely foreignizing to the most domesticating types of translation. These categories involve exoticism, calque, communicative translation, cultural transposition, and cultural transplantation. So we can see these categories in a continuum consisting of uh, 5 types of translation, ranging from we have 2 extremes. In one extreme, we have exoticism, and the other extreme, we have cultural transplantation. So we can arrange them in a continuum, ranging from extremely literal to extremely intricate, or from extremely foreignizing strategies to extremely domesticating strategies. This framework has been basically selected because it is the most comprehensive model, as it encompasses the different categories of translation, ranging from the most literal to the most intricate forms of rendition, with a special focus on communicative translation. In fact, communicative translation is the most suitable approach of translating poetry, since it takes the figurative meaning into account. In addition, it emphasizes on the features that surround the poem, such as the use of proverbs and idiomatic expressions, and focuses on the impact and the effect of the target translated poem on the target audience, as stated by Sunj in 208. And now coming to the first issue of the research, which is equivalence. Actually, it has been found there are certain words in classical Arabic that are problematic for translators, as they have no one-to-one equivalence in the target language. Such words needs to be resolved in Arabic to find an appropriate synonym before transferring it into the target language. For example, we have the word yusana. Yusana, this is a purely a classical Arabic word. It is no longer used in contemporary English, and it's a problematic for translators, because if we trace back the base form of the word, we will get the word sana'a, which is completely different from the real meaning of the word. So such words need to be resolved or translated in the first language, or in the in the source language, before being rendered into the target language. So it in effect means complement in English. Also, we have the word ta'anna, which has no corresponding word in English. It could roughly mean wait, despite that this option does not depict precisely the exact poet's intentions in the line وَلَوْ تَأَنَّنَا لَمَا تَمَنَّى. The word يدركه in English means to catch up, but in the poem it is used to mean achieve. يتمنى ما كل ما يتمنى المرء يدركه. Sometimes the translator needs to paraphrase an Arabic word or find a synonym to simplify the lexicon and adapt it to the target language. We have the word yar'ak, for example. We have to translate it first in Arabic into the word yu'amil, to treat you. So it has actually no direct equivalent in English. So the word treat you could be, acceptable, or we can choose the meaning treat you for translating this word. Also, طب نفسا, a two-word item that has no direct equivalent in English, but rendered functionally into be satisfied. The word مطالب, it literally means demands in English. But if this option is used, it would not convey the intentions of the poet. So we can translate it into wishes or dream. This is the intended meaning. Therefore, it is rendered as follow: wishes are not achieved by hoping. Likewise, the word غلابة in the other line can hardly find an equivalent in English. Thus, to maintain the same sense and tone, the translator chose the word coping in the lines وما نيل المطالب بالتمني ولكن تؤخذ الدنيا غلابة. So these are some examples. I searched the literature to find out what theorists have said about this issue, and I found that Harvey and Higgins stated that the difficulty in equivalence is in achieving the same effect in the target language by reproducing the source text. Also, Baker in 1992 distinguishes four types of equivalence. First, equivalence at the word level and above word level. She indicated that when considering a single word, the translator should be aware of a number of factors like number, gender, and tense. Second, Baker focused on the diversity between languages in grammatical categories because grammatical rules may vary, which causes problems to finding direct equivalents in the TL because of lacking grammatical devices such as number, gender, tense, and aspect, voice, and person. Thirdly, textual equivalence refers to equivalence between a source language text and a target language text, considering information and cohesion. And lastly, pragmatic equivalence, which means the focus on the implicit meaning in translation in order to achieve the ST message. The second issue, which is translation and gender, gender constitutes another difficulty for translators from Arabic to English due to the variant nature of inflectional pronouns in both languages. English makes a distinction between masculine and feminine in third personal singular, she, he, and and their derivatives, his and her. But it lacks neutral third singular reference. So third person singulars we have two, which are he or she, but we don't have a third uh, neutral singular reference, singular pronoun to be used in anaphoric reference. In Arabic, on the other hand, words which are used to refer to gender, such as we have neutral words that can be used to refer to gender, such as المرء, الشخص, الإنسان, ابن آدم. Even the very word الرجل, if we look at the word الرجل, it can be used in Arabic tradition to refer to both sexes. To mention some examples, we have the Quranic verse ما جعل الله لرجل من قلبين في جوفه. Also, we have prophetic sayings like يصبح الرجل مؤمنا ويمسي كافرا إن الرجل لا يحرم الرزق بالذنب يصيبه. So the word الرجل it is used in this context to refer to both sexes, to both genders, to males and to females. In addition, English lacks the attached pronoun, which is used frequently in Arabic. Arabic sometimes makes use of a masculine noun pronoun to refer to both males and females, as in the following line. So here we have this line إذا المرء لا يرعاك إلا تكلف فدعه ولا تكثر عليه التأسف. If we look at the word المرء, we can substitute it is not greatly problematic because we can substitute it by words such as person or man in English, but the problem is in the other line in the attached pronouns or the grammatical marker as we can see in the word فدعه we call it الضمير المتصل الهاء ضمير المتصل in Arabic. This is problematic because in English the only option we have is to substitute it by he or she, but this is not acceptable in poetic discourse. It will interrupt the flow of the lines and it will result in an awkward translation. So for the translator from Arabic into English, he she will be more inclined to use the masculine pronoun for general and generic references. This is not plausible to the English reader or listener. Actually, this is not acceptable in Arabic, in poetic discourse, as I have said. To avoid this pitfalls, he, she can insert an optional pronoun, he, she, or he, his, her, stated by Alewa. I also consulted the literature and I found that Alewa in 2014 discussed this issue and suggested the following solution to handle this problem. First, to use the plural form, to resort to pluralization in order to avoid using, because there is, as I said, there is no neutral singular pronoun in English. To use the neutral words such as the following: chairperson, spokesperson, head teacher, but this is also not applicable to literal translation and to poetic discourse. Or items like everyone, someone, anyone, everyone, person, anybody. To use the combination he, she, or she, him or her. Again, this is also not acceptable in poetry. It interrupts the flow of the lines, and it will result in an awkward translation. To use parallel lexical items for both sexes, or brother and sister, also this is again not applicable to literary context. Metaphor, now the translation, I don't know if there's time to cover this element, or should I skip it and move to the conclusion section? Actually, okay, we are left with 2 minutes. I'll go through it very quickly. The translated text contain a number of aesthetic devices such as metaphor, metonymy, personification. Metaphor is the most frequently employed figure of speech in language, and most other figures of speech are considered a metaphor prototype. Newmark identified 6 types of metaphor involving dead metaphor, cliché metaphors, stock metaphors, adapted metaphors, recent metaphors, and original metaphors. Most of the translated metaphors are categorized under the last label, which is original metaphors. Original metaphors are created or quoted by the SL writer speaker and don't relate to existing linguistic or cultural convention, but used in literature to produce and reflect the beauty of the author's figurative style. Dickens and others proposed the following techniques for translating this type. First, the source language original metaphor is returned. So again, by original metaphor, we mean that the original which is created or invented by the author himself. So the first strategy is to return the metaphor while maintaining the same or closely the same wording. So the same wording is used in the TL. As we can see in these slides, ما كل ما يتمنى المرء يدركه تجري الرياح بما لا تشتهي السفن. The words تجري and تشتهي, these are metaphorical. They are used metaphorically in Arabic, and in English we have maintained the metaphor and the wording as well. So they are translated into hopes are not always based on a man's law, as when the blow counter to ships flow. أحسن إلى الناس تستعبد قلوبهم. We can see the word, the bolded word here, تستعبد, is returned with the same sense and the same wording in the translation. It has been translated into enslave. دع الأيام تفعل ما شاءوا. It says also the same wording is also maintained. Let days do what they want. The SL original metaphor is retained. This is the second strategy. The SL word, the SL original metaphor is returned with some changes in the TL wording if it has the same connotations in the SL. So it undergoes a slight change, as we can see in this example. لا تلقى دهرك إلا غير مكترث ما دام يصحب فيه روحك البدن. This is the original. These are the original lines. It has been translated into so long your soul in your body, treat your world indifferently, and the order of the lines has been inverted as well. SL means source language, not second language in translation terms. Original metaphors may be converted to a TL simile to return the S voice. So a metaphor is returned to a simile. This is the third strategy. قم للمعلم في التبجيل كاد المعلم أن يكون رسولا. He is much like a delicate. This phrase, so the metaphor here has been converted to a simile, as we can see by using the words much like to denote a simile. The fourth strategy is not applicable to my research. The metaphorical sense is returned with addition of some exploratory direct elements. And the last technique is to strip off the metaphor from its figurative sense and translate it according to its basic meaning. So eliminate the metaphorical usage and translate the meaning of the words. وأظلم أهل الظلم من بات حاسدا لمن بات في نعمائه يتقلب. The word يتقلب here has been used metaphorically in Arabic, but it literally means in English fluctuate, but it has been translated into immersed in blessing. So the basic meaning is provided here. So the word يتقلب here it means a person who is immersed in blessings. Now the conclusion in terms of lexics, it was found through the scrutiny of the lines that there are classical Arabic words which have no direct equivalents in the target language. So these words, this can be ascribed to discrepancies between Arabic and English in terms of linguistic and cultural features. Despite the inherent differences between Arabic and English, it has been found that these two languages have much in common, particularly with regard to figures of speech. In fact, the investigation showed that most of the aesthetic devices are used in both languages with the same notion and function, such as metaphor, metonymy, personification, and simile. However, the researcher typically apply the different strategies established in the literature for translating these images. And finally, it can be concluded that the best method to translate poetry is to refrain from literal rendition and to focus on conveying thoughts and meanings of the original while maintaining the aesthetic and rhythmic aspects of the original text. As for the controversy revolving around the possibility of translating poetry, this research suggests that the translation of poetry is possible provided that the translation conform to the conventions of the target language, particularly when dealing with distinct languages such as Arabic and English, which have diverse nature and structure of poems. And with that, I have reached to the end of this presentation. Thank you for your attendance and for your attention. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yasmin, for imparting this wisdom to us. I have always had the view that translation does not do complete justice to poetry, but you showed some hope to us, like, okay, it can be done, but taking care of various things. Thank you very much. It was really interesting. I'm waiting for some questions. There are no questions yet in the question answer section. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have some questions, please write your questions in question and answer section of the Zoom.
Excuse me, sorry for speaking very fast because actually I want to cover the whole material before the end of time. Time is limited.
That was all right.
And I want to share
Alhamdulillah, we
everything I
could
have
get
prepared with
everything.
you.
Yes, thank you very much. It
Sorry
was
for the
interesting.
inconvenience.
No, it was fine. Alhamdulillah. I hope this is I'm representing the view of all the other participants as well. It was fine. Alhamdulillah. So I think everybody was really engrossed in the presentation and they enjoyed listening to you. We don't have any questions as of now.
Okay, it seems that there are no questions. Thank you
Yes.
again for your attendance and for your attention, and goodbye.
Thank you very much for this delighted presentation, Doctor. Thank you very much.